tell me something. What would you do if your entire family treated you like a burden, like free labor, like you didn't even exist, while you were secretly running a company worth millions right under their nose? Would you smile and serve them dinner, or would you make them regret every cruel word? This is the story of how my family found out, too late, that the daughter they called useless was the one signing contracts Fortune 500 CEOs begged for. My parents treated me like their maid until the CEO they wanted to impress called me boss. Last Christmas Eve, while my parents ordered me to cook like their unpaid maid, I was packing a suitcase with a contract worth $2 million tucked safely inside. They thought I was just Lily, the daughter who can't keep a job. What they didn't know is that I owned a company bigger than anything my sister Sarah could dream of. And when the truth came out, even a Fortune 500 CEO was left speechless. But before I tell you how my family went from mocking me to begging for my forgiveness, let me ask you. Have you ever been underestimated so badly that people didn't even bother to ask what you've achieved? If yes, you'll feel every word of this story. And if you enjoy tales where justice finally gets served, consider subscribing. Drop a comment with where you're watching from. I read every single one. Now, let's go back to that December evening. The night everything changed. I was in my Manhattan apartment, carefully folding clothes into my suitcase. The city outside glowed with Christmas lights, carolers sang faintly in the distance. It should have felt warm, festive. But inside me, there was only cold silence. My phone rang. Caller ID, Mom. I already knew. This wouldn't be a pleasant call. I answered, pressing the phone to my ear. Lily, cancel whatever silly plans you have for tomorrow, my mother, Margaret, commanded without even a hello. Her tone was sharp, the kind that left no space for argument. I kept folding my business blazer, jaw tight. What's happening tomorrow? I asked, though I already had a sinking feeling. Your sister Sarah is hosting her networking group for Christmas Eve dinner. 25 guests, all very important people. Executives from Pinnacle Corporation. You'll need to arrive by noon to start cooking. 7 main courses, 10 sides. The menu's already planned. Her voice carried a smirk I didn't need to see. I froze. Sarah's networking group. Of course. My little sister, the family princess, worked in PR and never missed a chance to flaunt her connections. Mom, I started, but she cut me off. Sarah's making important connections for this family. You should be grateful to help. It's not like you have anything else going on. That one stung. But it wasn't new. I glanced at my laptop, where an email from Victoria Chin, CEO of Pinnacle Hospitality, still glowed on the screen. If only my mother knew. Use the good china, she continued. These aren't your usual crowd, Lily. These are people who matter. People who matter. Unlike me. Apparently. I'll text you the menu. Don't embarrass us. Click. The line went dead. I looked down at the plane ticket on my desk. Flight 447 to Florida. Departure 8 p.m. tomorrow. And for once, my hands weren't shaking. After 17 years of this, I finally understood the difference between their emergencies and my priorities. Memories rushed in like an icy tide. Every Thanksgiving since I was 17, Lily will handle the cooking while Sarah entertains. Every Christmas, Lily's between jobs again, but at least she's useful in the kitchen. Every family party where Sarah was introduced as our successful daughter in public relations, while I was reduced to Lily's here too. She's helping out. The last party had been the worst. Sarah's engagement celebration. 200 guests at the country club. I'd spent 14 hours preparing appetizers while Sarah sparkled in a $3,000 dress, paid for, of course, by our parents. When one guest politely asked what I did for work, my mother laughed. Lily doesn't have Sarah's social skills. But she cooks well. I remember my ears burning. My fists clenched. And Sarah? She just smirked, sipping champagne like she was royalty. That night in my apartment, I walked to my closet. I pulled out my second suitcase. Inside was a leather folder, carefully protected. Embossed in gold letters, Stellar Events. My company. My empire. For 5 years, I'd built it in silence. 50 employees across 3 locations. A client list filled with luxury resorts, politicians, celebrities, and yes, even Fortune 500 companies. And tomorrow, while my family expected me to slave in their kitchen, I had a meeting that would secure a $2 million contract. I wasn't some failed daughter. I was a CEO. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Mom says you're cooking tomorrow. Don't screw it up. Important people will be there. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I looked at my plane ticket again. Not this time. For once, I whispered, they'll have to figure it out themselves. I zipped my suitcase shut. But 2 memories wouldn't leave me alone. The first? Last month at the country club. My father introduced us, Sarah's our success story. Lily's between opportunities. Between opportunities? I had just closed a $500,000 contract that morning. But to them, I was perpetually unemployed. Perpetually failing. The second? Last summer. I'd gone home to visit, only to find my childhood bedroom stripped bare. My trophies, my books, boxed up in the basement. Why? Because Sarah needed more space. Our parents had given her the entire 3rd floor, newly renovated. A home office. A walk-in closet. While my history, my presence, was shoved into storage. The message was clear, one daughter was an investment. The other was invisible. Yet, in my world outside of them, I was anything but invisible. My employees had thrown me a surprise holiday party just last week. 50 people chanting my name, celebrating the pinnacle account we had just landed. They saw my value. They respected my leadership. And tomorrow's meeting with Victoria Chen? It would change everything. Not just for me, but for my team. For Maria, my head chef, who'd just put an offer on her first house. For James, my operations manager, who was planning better schools for his kids. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every person who believed in me when my own parents couldn't bother to ask what I did all day. Another buzz. An email this time. From Mom. Subject line, urgent, Christmas Eve menu. I opened it. My stomach turned. 7 main courses. 10 sides. Dietary restrictions for 5 guests. Wine pairings. Dessert selections. She had planned every garnish. Every serving plate. Every ounce of my time, as if I were their servant. But tomorrow, I had my own menu. One that would finally feed my future. Tell me, have you ever had to hide your achievements from family who would never understand? Comment below. It means more than you know. Because this was the night I chose myself. And it was only the beginning. The moment my mom mentioned Victoria Chen's name, I nearly dropped my phone. Victoria Chen. The same CEO I was flying to meet in Florida was scheduled to eat Christmas Eve dinner in my parents' dining room. Except in their version of the story, I wasn't a CEO. I was just their unemployed daughter, good for cooking and cleaning. I scanned the guest list again, my pulse hammering. There it was, clear as day, Victoria Chin, CEO, Pinnacle Hospitality. A woman who had never seen my face in person. A woman who, in less than 24 hours, would decide if my company was worth a $2 million contract. And my family expected me to serve her dinner in silence. Backhand index pointing right. Let me ask you something. What would you do if the person who held your future in their hands was about to see you in the role your family forced on you? Would you play along, or would you risk everything to step into your truth? Another text from Sarah popped up. Mom says Victoria Chin will be there. She's huge in hospitality. I'm hoping to pitch her PR services. Don't embarrass me with your amateur cooking. Amateur cooking. The irony was unbearable. Just last month, my team had catered Victoria's corporate retreat. 500 guests. A flawless event that made headlines in the industry press. She'd praised Stellar Events for its execution. But we'd only dealt through her executive team. She didn't know me by name. Not yet. That meeting was scheduled for tomorrow night. And tonight? Tonight she'd be sitting in my parents' home, expecting the invisible daughter to spoon potatoes onto her plate. I sat down hard on my bed, the weight of the decision crushing me. Stay and play servant, pretending to be a failure in front of the one woman I'd been waiting years to meet? Or leave, risk my family's wrath, and secure my company's future? At that exact moment, my phone buzzed. Uber notification, your ride to JFK Airport is scheduled for 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. I looked at the email again. The menu my mother had sent. 7 main courses. 10 sides. A dozen desserts. Then at the sleek contract folder on my desk. Then at my plane ticket. The choice had never been clearer. I dialed my mother. She answered on the first ring, voice sharp. Finally. I was starting to worry you weren't taking this seriously. I steadied my breath. Mom. I can't do it. Silence. Then her voice turned to steel. What do you mean you can't? I have a business trip. I'm flying to Florida tonight. Don't be ridiculous. She snapped, almost shrieking. What possible business could you have? An important meeting? She actually laughed. Lily, stop being selfish. Your sister needs this. My hand tightened around the phone. Sarah had a catering team she could hire. That's what I wanted to say. Instead, I bit my tongue. The irony was unbearable, my mother ranting about catering costs to someone who owned one of the fastest-growing catering companies in the state. Family comes first, she barked. Or are you too selfish to understand that? I swallowed the lump in my throat. No, Mom. I understand perfectly. Family comes first, when you need something from me. Her gasp was audible. How dare you? When's the last time you asked about my life? About my company? We know about your life. You're between jobs, living in that tiny apartment. My lips curled into a bitter smile. I'm a CEO. Another laugh. Cruel this time. A CEO of what? Your imaginary company? It's not imaginary. I have 50 employees. Enough with the fantasies, Lily. Sarah needs this. You owe us. The words pierced me. I owe you? For what? For raising me while treating me like hired help? For feeding me while making sure I knew I was the afterthought? You're being dramatic, she snapped. What else do you have to do? Sit in your apartment alone on Christmas? I glanced at my business class ticket. I have a flight at 8 p.m. Cancel it. No. Her next words came like ice. If you leave, don't bother coming back. The same threat she'd used 100 times before. Usually, I caved. Usually, I folded. But not this time. Then I guess this is goodbye, I whispered. You can't be serious. I'm done being the family servant, Mom. I'm done being invisible until you need something. You ungrateful. I hung up. My hands shook, but not from fear. Not from anger. For the first time in 15 years, it was from freedom. My phone immediately exploded. Text after text from Sarah. What did you just do? Mom's having a meltdown. Stop being dramatic. Get over here. I turned the phone off. Kept packing. They'd figure it out. They always did when they had to. When I turned the phone back on, it rang instantly. Sarah's voice screeched through. What is wrong with you? Mom's calling every relative, saying you've lost your mind. I have a business meeting on Christmas Eve. Stop lying. I'm not lying. This is about that stupid fight last month, isn't it? When Mom gave me your room. I laughed bitterly. My room was converted to your closet years ago, Sarah. And no, this is about my actual career. What career? You cook sometimes. I own a catering company. Sure you do. Her voice dripped with condescension. Look, I'll pay you to cook. How's $200? I almost laughed. My day rate for personal chef services alone was $5,000. This is non-negotiable, Sarah. I'm not coming. Mom will disown you. That's her choice. You're really going to ruin Christmas? Ruin my networking opportunity? Victoria Chin will be there. Then hire a caterer. On Christmas Eve. You're insane. No one's available. I walked to the kitchen counter where I'd left a notepad. 3 catering companies were written there. Their 24-hour hotlines. It was more than they deserved. But I wasn't heartless. I left the note in plain view. Next to it, I placed my business card. Lily Sullivan, CEO, Stellar Events. They wouldn't come. They wouldn't see it. But I knew I'd tried. The next evening, at exactly 8:07 p.m., the plane lifted from JFK. Below me, Connecticut faded into a blur of lights. Somewhere down there, my mother was probably frantically dialing every relative, painting me as the ungrateful daughter who abandoned her family on Christmas Eve. I opened my laptop. The contract glowed on the screen. Clause 15.3, CO presence required for all strategic sessions. Victoria herself had insisted on that clause. She only worked with founders who were hands-on. My inbox showed 17 new messages from her team, confirming tomorrow's schedule. Pre-meeting dinner at 7 p.m. Formal presentation at 9 a.m. Contract signing immediately after. An email from Victoria herself. Looking forward to finally meeting you in person, Lily. I've been following Stellar Events' growth for 2 years. Your reputation precedes you. My reputation. If only she knew. The same woman she was praising was supposed to be serving her mashed potatoes in my parents' dining room tonight. My assistant's message popped up. Forbes wants to confirm if they can mention your family background. Built from scratch angle is strong. They're asking about your family support. I typed back. Tell them the article runs on the 27th, correct? Yes. Goes live at midnight on the 26th. Perfect. By then, the deal would be signed. My family would know the truth, not from me, but from every magazine rack in the country. The Pinnacle Resort suite took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows, champagne on ice, a handwritten note. Welcome, Miss Sullivan. Looking forward to our partnership. Victoria Chen. I checked my phone. 47 missed calls from Mom. 18 from Sarah. Even 3 from my usually silent father. I deleted them all. Instead, I opened the latest draft from Forbes. Headline, From Invisible to Invaluable, How Lily Sullivan Built a Catering Empire Without a Dollar of Family Money. They'd moved me to the cover story. The cover. My photo. Confident. Professional. Nothing like the invisible daughter my family knew. Another email from Victoria. Arriving late to tomorrow's dinner. Coming straight from a social obligation in Connecticut. Hope that's all right. Connecticut. She was at my parents' house. Right now. Probably wondering why the elaborate meal she'd been promised had turned into chaos. The next morning, Sarah's texts told the whole story. By 6 p.m., panic had set in. The kitchen's still untouched. Guests arriving in less than an hour. Mom's losing it. She's calling every restaurant in a 50-mile radius. Everything's closed. How could you do this to us? At 7 o'clock, guests began arriving. Executives. Bankers. And Victoria Chen. My mother's pride was about to meet reality. Sarah's texts grew frantic. We're ordering pizza. Pizza, Lily. Do you understand what you've done? At 7:47. Mom just told everyone you're unreliable. Always have been. She's blaming you for everything. By 8:15, pizza boxes sat on Waterford Crystal. Papa John's. Domino's. On top of heirloom china worth more than rent. The texts kept coming. Victoria Chen looks disgusted. People are leaving. Mom says you're mentally unstable. The family disappointment. 9:33 p.m. Party's over. Everyone left. Victoria didn't even stay for dessert. Mom says you're dead to her. I closed my phone. Ordered breakfast. In 3 hours, I'd be having dinner with Victoria Chen. Not as a servant. As her business partner. And I wondered, when she told me about the disaster in Connecticut, would she realize whose daughter I was? Imagine this, your own mother calls you unemployable in front of strangers, treats you like a maid, and then, less than 24 hours later, she finds out you're on the cover of Forbes as a self-made millionaire. What would you do? Would you forgive her, or let her choke on her own humiliation? That night, after Victoria smiled across the dinner table and changed the subject to my company, I lay awake in my hotel room. Her words echoed in my head, that's terrible. I can't imagine treating family that way. For the first time in years, someone outside my circle, someone powerful, respected, said exactly what I had been too afraid to admit, it was terrible. Not just uncomfortable. Not just awkward. Terrible. But the universe has a funny way of delivering justice. Because the very next morning, December 26th, everything unraveled. I walked into Pinnacle's boardroom at 9 a.m., shoulders squared, heart pounding but face calm. This was it. The moment I had been working toward for years. The $2 million contract sat neatly on the polished oak table, gleaming under the soft lights. Victoria Chen, elegant as ever, greeted me warmly. Her team sat ready, their eyes sharp but respectful. I launched into my presentation, every slide perfect, every word precise. This was my battlefield. And here, I wasn't the invisible daughter. Here, I was a CEO. And then, chaos. Victoria's assistant rushed in, holding an iPad. "Ms. Chen, you need to see this." The room shifted. My pulse quickened. Victoria took the iPad, her expression moving from curiosity, to confusion, to something colder. She looked at me, then back at the screen, then at me again. "Lily," she said slowly, "this photo, from Connecticut. From the Sullivan house." She turned the screen toward me. It was a family photo from last Thanksgiving, one my mother had proudly hung on the wall. Sarah stood front and center, all teeth and sparkle. My parents flanked her like royalty. And me? I was a blurry shadow in the background, half cut off by the frame. "Is this you?" Victoria asked. I swallowed. "Yes." "And Margaret Sullivan is your mother?" "Yes." The boardroom went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Her legal counsel set down his pen. The marketing director raised his brows. Everyone was staring at me, not with disrespect, but with dawning realization. Victoria's voice was sharp now. "The woman who called you unreliable, unstable, unemployable, is your mother?" "Yes." She stood up, walked to the window, and then turned back. "You were supposed to cook that dinner, the one that ended in a pizza disaster." I nodded. I was. But I chose this instead. My business. My future. Not their humiliation games. Victoria's phone buzzed. She scrolled, then froze. "Your mother told people you don't have a job. That you're a failure. She has no idea about stellar events?" "She never asked," I said simply. And in that moment, you could see it hit her. The cruelty wasn't just ignorance, it was intentional. Victoria sat heavily in her chair. "Let me get this straight. Your family doesn't know you run one of the most successful catering companies on the East Coast. They don't know about your 50 employees. They don't know about your 3 locations. Or this $2 million deal we're about to sign." "Correct. They think I live in a shoebox and scrape by." Her business partner James leaned forward, stunned. "So the woman ranting last night, waving pizza boxes around like trophies, has no idea her daughter could have catered the entire event like the Ritz-Carlton?" I gave a humorless laugh. "She's never asked what I do. She just assumes." Victoria started laughing then. Real, unfiltered laughter. Oh my God. She spent the whole night whining about her disappointment of a daughter, while that daughter is the very CEO I've been chasing for 2 years. And then, fireworks. Victoria's assistant burst in again. "Forbes just announced their 40 under 40. You need to see this." On the boardroom screen, my face appeared, professional, confident, framed by bold letters. "From invisible to invaluable, how Lily Sullivan built a catering empire without family money." The headline hit harder than champagne. The whole room exhaled. Victoria read it aloud, savoring each word. built stellar events from $5,000 into a multi-million-dollar enterprise, deliberately avoided family connections, proved success doesn't require a famous last name. She looked at me. This goes live at midnight? Yes. Your family doesn't know? They will. My phone buzzed violently on the table, 47 missed calls in 3 minutes. All from Mom. Victoria stood, pacing. Then she did the unthinkable. She dialed. Victoria, I started, but she held up a hand. Through the glass wall we all watched her speak. Animated, controlled, powerful. Then she came back, smiling like a cat with cream. I just called Margaret Sullivan, she said casually. My stomach plummeted. You what? I told her last night's event was a disaster. That I'd never do business with her again. She blamed you. Said it was her older daughter's fault. My throat burned. And then? And then, Victoria continued, I told her I had just signed a $2 million contract with the most talented entrepreneur I know, her daughter, Lily Sullivan, CEO of Stellar Events. The silence was deafening. The sound she made, Victoria added, was like all the air left her lungs. My phone exploded again. Texts. Voicemails. Desperation. Dad, your mother just fainted. What the hell is Stellar Events? Sarah, please tell me this is a joke. Mom, how dare you humiliate us like this? Call me now. I looked at Victoria. She lifted her glass of champagne. To boundaries. Later, I answered Sarah's frantic call on speaker, letting the whole room hear. This can't be real, Sarah gasped. It's real. For 5 years. Why didn't you tell us? You never asked. You all preferred the lie, that I was a failure. Mom's having a breakdown, she insisted. That's not my problem, I replied. How can you be so cold? I glanced at Victoria's team, people who valued me more in 1 hour than my family had in 3 decades. I'm not cold. I'm done. Done being invisible until you need a cook. Done shrinking so Sarah can shine. Done pretending. That night, the fallout began. Within 48 hours, Sarah's PR firm lost its biggest contract. Mom was dropped from her charity board. Dad's golf buddies mocked him. And me? I toasted champagne with industry leaders while Forbes prepared to put my story on stands across the country. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the family disappointment. I was exactly what they said I'd never be, seen, respected, undeniable. So tell me, if your family spent years calling you worthless, then suddenly begged for forgiveness the moment the world saw your success, would you take them back? Or would you let them live with the taste of their own medicine forever? The headline alone was brutal. Self-made CEO builds multi-million-dollar empire with no family support. I didn't need to read further. That one line, printed in Forbes, cut sharper than any knife my family had ever wielded against me. But the real dagger? Buried quietly in the third paragraph, a single quote from me that slipped past their defenses and detonated like a bomb. My family assumed I was unemployed. It was easier to build an empire in silence than to fight their assumptions. That line broke them. For years, they had spun their story about me, the invisible daughter, the failure, the servant. And in one interview, that carefully crafted fiction collapsed. 2 days after the article dropped, my phone lit up with a number I hadn't seen in years. My father. I let it ring twice before I answered. Lily, he said. His voice was shaky, almost unrecognizable. I need to say something. I waited. Silence was powerful. Silence forced him to dig deeper. I knew, he finally confessed. I knew you were doing something with catering. Years ago, when some business registration papers came to the house by mistake, I saw your name. But your mother, she was so certain about who you were supposed to be. And I didn't fight her. I didn't defend you. I closed my eyes. 15 years of being unseen, reduced to a single cowardly truth. Why didn't you? I asked quietly. Because it was easier, he admitted. His voice cracked. Easier to let her narrative stand than to fight her. But that made me complicit. I see that now. I'm ashamed, Lily. I should have been your shield, and instead, I was her echo. It was the most honest thing he'd said to me in 15 years. And then, almost as if confessing had unlocked him, the truth poured out. Your mother's lost 3 charity positions. People are whispering. Sarah's firm is hemorrhaging clients. Everyone wants to know how we could praise Sarah's mediocrity while treating our truly successful daughter like the help. Do you realize the irony? The country club, they're still laughing about the pizza fiasco. Margaret Sullivan, the woman who bragged for years about her parties, was serving Papa John's on Waterford Crystal, while her daughter was secretly signing million-dollar contracts. For a second, just one, I felt a twinge of sympathy. But then I remembered every slammed door, every dismissal, every Christmas where I was handed an apron instead of a chair at the table. Dad, I said, steady and cold. I don't apologize. Not for any of this. You're not the victims. You earned every single consequence. Every loss. Every humiliation. That was you. Not me. While my family's world burned, mine ignited in the best way possible. The Forbes piece had included a photo of me, champagne in hand, surrounded by executives who valued me. The image spread everywhere. Side by side, people compared it to the last Thanksgiving picture with my family, me lurking in the background, dressed like the help. The contrast spoke louder than words. Within a week, Stellar Events was flooded. Over 200 new inquiries, partnerships, collaborations. Clients who had ignored me for years suddenly begged to book us. Interview requests, keynote speaking offers, even TV producers circling. Victoria Chin, the woman whose Christmas disaster had exposed everything, became my loudest advocate. She told anyone who would listen, imagine having a golden goose in your home, and you treated her like a servant duck. 3 new contracts came from her network alone, worth a combined $10 million. I expanded immediately, hiring 20 new employees. Maria became my executive chef. James, my COO. In one meeting, Maria looked across the table at me and said something that stopped me cold. You know what I love most about this company? She said softly. You built it for people who were overlooked. Half of us were told we'd never amount to anything. And here we are, proving everyone wrong. She was right. Without realizing it, I had built an empire of underestimated people. People like me. The offers kept climbing. Food Network reached out, a documentary. Working title, Invisible to Invaluable, The Lily Sullivan Story. Then came the invitation that brought me to tears. Cornell University. My dream school. The one my parents had told me was too ambitious, too impossible. Come speak, the invitation read, on the topic, Building Success Without Permission. It felt like life had come full circle. As I prepped my speech, my phone buzzed. A text. My mother. We need to talk. Please. I stared at it for a long time. Then I archived it. Success was the best response to disrespect. But boundaries? Boundaries were the real gift. 3 months later, I agreed to meet them. Neutral ground, a quiet Manhattan restaurant. My territory, not theirs. When I walked in, I barely recognized them. My mother's imperious edge? Gone. Sarah's smug confidence? Shattered. My father looked as though he'd aged 10 years. Before anyone could speak, I laid a single sheet of paper on the table. "These are my terms," I said flatly. They leaned in. Equal respect, or no contact. No more servant treatment, ever. Public acknowledgement of my success. Genuine apology, not just words. Therapy. Family and individual. Non-negotiable. I looked at each of them. "I will be your daughter, not your servant. Your sister, not your staff. If you can't accept that, this is the last time we'll ever sit at a table together." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Lily, we've lost everything. My reputation, Sarah's clients. That's not my responsibility," I cut in. My father raised his hands. "We're not here to blame you. We're here to ask for a second chance." Then Sarah spoke. For once, her voice held no venom. "I was jealous. You were always better, but Mom made me feel special by making you small. I see how wrong that was now. My therapist says we built a family system where someone had to be the scapegoat. You were assigned that role before you even knew what was happening." And then my mother whispered the words I never thought I'd hear. "I'm sorry. Not just for Christmas Eve. For 15 years of blindness. I turned you into a servant because I couldn't bear the idea that you might surpass the life I planned for you." I let the silence stretch. Finally, I said, "I'll consider it. But if we rebuild, it's as equals. And Mom, if you ever want Stellar Events to cater anything, you'll pay full price." For the first time in months, she smiled. Fair. 6 months later, I hosted my first family dinner. In my real home. A 2-bedroom condo overlooking Central Park. They'd never even known it existed. But I didn't cook. My team from Stellar Events catered it. Because that was a boundary I would never cross again. As they sat at my table, being served by the employees who called me boss, the role reversal wasn't lost on anyone. And I made sure of it. I raised my glass. Let's be clear. Success doesn't need permission. Self-worth doesn't require validation. And respect is non-negotiable. My mother nodded, eyes glassy. She'd been in therapy for 4 months. She'd even stood in front of the country club, admitting she had been blind. It didn't fix her reputation. But maybe, just maybe, it began to fix us. Sarah had changed too. Her PR firm pivoted, and humbly, genuinely, she asked if Stellar Events would consider hiring her. I told her to submit a proposal like everyone else. She did. And it was good. We were considering it. My father, he introduced me now as my daughter. The CEO. With pride. But the biggest change? Was me. I no longer dimmed my light to make others comfortable. Stellar Events grew to 100 employees across 5 cities. The Food Network documentary aired to critical acclaim. And every morning, I looked in the mirror and whispered, "I'm Lily Sullivan, CEO of Stellar Events. Not the family servant. Never again." And if you're watching this, I want you to remember something. Your value does not decrease because someone else can't see it. Your worth is not defined by their blindness. And you are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. If my story resonated with you, tell me. Share a time you chose yourself over family expectations. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If you believe respect is non-negotiable, share this video. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of people who refuse to stay small. Until next time. This is Lily Sullivan. Reminding you, know your worth. And then add tax.